Picture this: rural Georgia, 1979. Dirt roads kicking up clouds of orange dust, the wail of a supercharged engine echoing through backwoods valleys. A bright orange Dodge Charger launching into the air, defying gravity and common sense in equal measure. The Dukes of Hazzard wasn't just a TV show, it was a cultural earthquake that turned a simple car chase into American mythology. For 7 seasons, viewers watched Bo and Luke Duke outsmart crooked cops, leap ravines, and slide across the General Lee's hood like it was choreographed ballet. The show was part comedy, part action thriller, part Southern Gothic fairy tale. It made rural rebellion cool. It turned a car into a character. And behind those good old boys and their never meaning no harm antics, there was a production as wild and unpredictable as the show itself. What you're about to discover goes far beyond the jumps and the Daisy Dukes. These are the stories they didn't show you on Friday nights. The accidents that nearly killed the cast, the bizarre creative decisions that almost destroyed the show, the real-life feuds, and the strange obsessions that defined a generation. This is the untold history of Hazzard County. Number 13. The General Lee was a mass grave for Dodge Chargers. Let's start with the most iconic car in television history, that beautiful 1969 Dodge Charger with its Confederate flag roof and 01. Painted on the doors wasn't just one car. It was somewhere between 250 and 320 cars, depending on who you ask. The production team went through Chargers like a wood chipper through kindling. Here's why. Every single jump you saw on screen destroyed the car. Not damaged it, destroyed it. The impact of landing would bend the frame, crack the engine block, shatter the suspension. Most of the time, a Charger could only survive 1 or 2 jumps before it was rendered completely useless. The crew would literally have to hunt down 69 Chargers across the American South, buying them from junkyards, private owners, anyone willing to sell. They'd strip them down, paint them orange, slap on the decals, and send them flying through the air to their inevitable doom. Some estimates suggest the show destroyed more 1969 Dodge Chargers than any other single event in automotive history. And here's the kicker. Today, those cars are worth upwards of $100,000 each in good condition. The Dukes of Hazzard essentially obliterated millions of dollars in classic American muscle cars for our entertainment. But the General Lee's body count was just the beginning. Number 12, the show was based on a bootlegging film called Moonrunners. Most people don't know this, but the Dukes of Hazzard started as something much grittier. In 1975, a low-budget film called Moonrunners hit drive-in theaters across the South. It was a gritty, somewhat violent story about bootleggers running moonshine through rural Tennessee, dodging corrupt sheriffs and revenuers. The film starred James Mitchum and featured car chases that were raw, dangerous, and thrilling in a way that felt authentically criminal. The movie's writer and director, Guy Waldron, caught the attention of Warner Bros. Television. They saw the potential for a sanitized, family-friendly version that could work in primetime. Waldron was brought on board to develop the concept, and he transformed the moonshine runners into more wholesome, good old boys who just happened to be really good at driving. But traces of that original bootlegging DNA remained embedded in the show's mythology. The Duke boys were on probation for running moonshine. Uncle Jesse was an old moonshiner himself. Even Boss Hogg's schemes often involved illegal alcohol production. The show was basically a G-rated version of Criminal Enterprise, dressed up with rebel flags and cut-off shorts. Moonrunners is still available to watch, and if you do, you'll see the proto-Dukes in their original, unpolished form. It's darker, stranger, and honestly kind of fascinating to see what the show almost became. Number 11, Daisy Duke's shorts started a fashion revolution and a controversy. Catherine Bach didn't just play Daisy Duke. She created Daisy Duke. When Bach was cast as the Duke boy's cousin, the costume department presented her with a frilly country-style dress that looked like it belonged in a square dance competition. Bach took one look at it and said absolutely not. She went home, cut up a pair of her own jeans, tied them with a white button-up shirt, and showed up to set with an outfit that would define a generation. The Daisy Dukes were born. High-cut denim shorts that became so iconic, they entered the dictionary as their own term. Bach's legs were reportedly insured for $1 million, though she later admitted that was probably studio hype. But here's where it gets weird. CBS received thousands of complaints from conservative parent groups who believed Daisy's wardrobe was too provocative for family television. Some affiliate stations in the Bible Belt threatened to pull the show. The network actually considered making Bach wear longer shorts. Bach fought back. She argued that Daisy was strong, capable, and intelligent, and that her appearance didn't diminish those qualities. The character could fix an engine, handle a fight, and outsmart every man in Hazzard County. Her shorts weren't the point, her competence was. CBS ultimately backed down, and Daisy Duke became a feminist icon in ways the network never intended. She was sexy, sure, but she was also the smartest person in most rooms. That combination was revolutionary for 1979 television. Number 10. The cast was almost completely different. Imagine the Dukes of Hazzard with different actors. It almost happened. For the role of Luke Duke, the producers seriously considered a young actor named Mickey Dolenz. Yes, that Mickey Dolenz from The Monkees. He was deemed too old and too associated with his previous role. Tom Wopat got the part instead, bringing a musical theater background and a baritone voice that would eventually lead to Broadway. For Bo Duke, the frontrunner was actually a stuntman named Gary Baxley. But when John Schneider walked into the audition, he lied about knowing how to drive. He couldn't drive stick shift at all. He learned in the Warner Bros. Parking lot after getting cast. The most shocking near miss? Boss Hogg was almost played by horror legend Vincent Price. The network wanted someone with gravitas and villainy, and Price was interested in doing comedy. But Sorrell Booke's audition was so perfect, so deliciously corrupt, yet somehow lovable, that they couldn't pass him up. And perhaps most bizarrely, the role of Cooter was initially offered to comedian Gallagher. Yes, the watermelon smashing Gallagher. He turned it down because he thought the show would be canceled after 6 episodes. Ben Jones got the role instead and wrote it to a second career in politics. Sometimes the universe just knows. Number 9. Warner Bros. Fought constantly with Southern sheriffs about road access. Here's something most viewers never considered. Filming a show about high-speed car chases in real locations required cooperation from actual law enforcement. It didn't always go smoothly. Warner Bros. Production crews would arrive in small Georgia towns, request permits to shut down roads for filming, and inevitably clash with local sheriffs who didn't appreciate Hollywood outsiders disrupting their communities. Some sheriffs demanded outrageous fees, others simply refused, forcing the production to move to different counties. There were incidents where real police would show up during filming, unaware that a production was happening, and attempt to arrest the stunt drivers for reckless driving. On more than one occasion, stunt coordinator Gary Baxley had to explain to angry deputies that yes, they had permits, and no, they weren't actually fleeing from the law. The irony was delicious. A show about outlaws running from corrupt cops was being hassled by real cops who thought the filmmakers were breaking the law. Eventually, Warner Bros. Built relationships with specific counties in Georgia and California, paying substantial fees to ensure smooth production. But those early seasons were absolutely chaotic, with the crew constantly looking over their shoulders for real law enforcement interference. The show's anti-authority message wasn't just fiction, it was sometimes reflected in the very real tensions between Hollywood and rural American law enforcement. Number 8, the narrator, was a country music legend. Slumming in television, that smooth, friendly voice guiding you through every episode, that was Waylon Jennings. And he was already a massive country music star when he took the job. Jennings was part of the outlaw country movement alongside Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. He'd already had major hits like Luckin' Back Texas and Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. The irony was he was a legitimate musical icon. So why was he narrating a TV show about car chases? Money, partly, but also creative control. Jennings negotiated a deal where he would not only narrate, but also provide the theme song Good Old Boys and control the show's musical identity. His involvement gave the Dukes of Hazzard instant credibility in Southern markets and with country music fans. But Jennings later admitted he barely watched the show. He'd record his narration in a single afternoon session, often ad-libbing jokes and commentary that weren't in the script. That's why the narration sometimes feels like a knowing outsider commenting on the absurdity of what we're watching, because that's exactly what it was. Waylon Jennings was essentially getting paid to lovingly mock the show he was narrating, and somehow that made it even better. Hey, if you've made it this far, you're clearly a true fan of classic television. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell. You know the drill. We've got more weird facts coming at you, and trust me, the next ones get even stranger. Number 7. Tom Wopat and John Schneider were replaced for an entire season, and fans revolted. This is where things get truly bizarre. In 1982, at the height of the show's popularity, Tom Wopat and John Schneider got into a contract dispute with Warner Bros. They wanted more money and a cut of the show's merchandising profits. The studio refused. Both actors walked off the set and refused to return. Warner Bros. Had a choice: cancel the show or replace them. They chose to replace them. Enter Coy and Vance Duke, played by Byron Cherry and Christopher Mayer. They were supposed to be the Duke boys' cousins, identical in personality and function. The show didn't skip a beat in terms of plot. Same car chases, same hijinks, same everything. Except fans absolutely hated it. The ratings plummeted. Merchandise sales collapsed. Angry letters flooded CBS headquarters. Fan clubs threatened boycotts. It was a full-scale revolt from the viewing public, who made it very clear these weren't their Duke boys. Warner Bros. Panicked and reopened negotiations with Wopat and Schneider. A deal was struck that included better pay and some merchandise participation. After just 18 episodes, Coy and Vance disappeared from Hazzard County without explanation, and Bo and Luke returned like nothing had happened. The show never quite recovered its momentum. That single season scarred the series and proved something important. You can't just swap out beloved characters and expect audiences to accept knockoffs. Fans knew the difference, and they weren't having it. Number 6, the stunts were genuinely life-threatening, and someone almost died. Let's talk about what it actually took to film those jumps. Every spectacular car stunt you watched was done practically. No CGI, no green screens, real cars, real drivers, real impacts. And the stunt coordinators were pushing physics to its absolute limit. The General Lee would regularly launch 50 to 100 feet through the air. Stunt drivers would hit ramps at speeds exceeding 80 miles per hour, with nothing but a roll cage and a helmet protecting them. The landings were bone-crushing, spine-compressing impacts that would leave drivers bruised and battered. On multiple occasions, stunt drivers were hospitalized with concussions, broken ribs, and severe whiplash. One stuntman, during a jump sequence, landed so hard that the car's roof collapsed inward, nearly crushing his skull. He survived, but just barely. The most terrifying incident involved a stunt that went wrong during season 3. A jump was miscalculated, and the General Lee veered off course mid-air, crashing through a wooden fence and rolling multiple times. The stunt driver was knocked unconscious. Production shut down for 2 weeks while the crew reevaluated their safety protocols. But here's the thing, they didn't stop doing the stunts. They just got slightly more careful. The show's entire appeal was built on those death-defying jumps, and everyone involved knew it. The stunts were dangerous, expensive, and absolutely essential. They couldn't stop, even when people were getting seriously hurt. That's the dark reality behind the entertainment. Number 5, Sorrell Booke was nothing like Boss Hogg in real life. Boss Hogg was a corrupt, greedy, semi-literate Southern politician who schemed and swindled his way through every episode. Sorrell Booke, the actor who played him, had a master's degree from Yale and spoke 5 languages fluently. This is perhaps the most delicious irony of the entire series. Booke was a classically trained theater actor with an Ivy League education who had performed Shakespeare on Broadway. He was cultured, sophisticated, and brilliant, and yet he spent 7 years playing a buffoonish villain in a white suit. Booke would arrive on set with a briefcase full of books, reading philosophy and literature between takes. He'd discuss politics and world affairs with the crew. Then he'd slip into character and deliver lines like "cuff 'em and stuff 'em, Roscoe," with perfect comedic timing. John Schneider later said that watching Booke work was like watching a masterclass in character acting. He never broke, never winked at the audience, never played Boss Hogg as anything other than completely genuine. That's why the character worked. Booke committed fully to the absurdity. The tragedy is that Booke's incredible range was never fully recognized. He was so good at playing Boss Hogg that Hollywood typecast him, and he struggled to find work after the show ended. He died in 1994 at age 64, having given one of television's great comedic performances that most critics never took seriously. He deserved better. Number 4, the Confederate flag controversy was always there. People just ignored it. Let's address the elephant in Hazzard County. That Confederate flag on the General Lee's roof has become the most controversial aspect of the show's legacy. In recent years, networks have pulled the show from syndication. Warner Bros. Stopped licensing merchandise featuring the flag, and conversations about the show inevitably turned to questions of racism and Southern symbolism. But here's what's important to understand. This wasn't a 2020s controversy. It was controversial from the very beginning. The NAACP protested the show during its original run, arguing that the Confederate imagery was offensive and that the show romanticized a racist past. Warner Bros. Responded with a statement claiming the flag was simply Southern pride and not intended as a political statement. Black cast members and guest stars reportedly expressed discomfort with the imagery. The show's creators always claimed the flag represented rebellion against authority, not racial ideology. They pointed out that the show featured Black characters in positions of respect and that the Duke boys were never portrayed as racist. But that defense always felt incomplete. Catherine Bach, later admitted that if she'd understood the flag's full historical weight, she would have pushed back harder against its use. John Schneider and Tom Wopat have both expressed regret about not questioning it more at the time. The truth is complicated. For many Southern viewers in 1979, the flag genuinely did represent regional identity and rebellion. For many Black Americans, then and now, it represented terrorism and oppression. Both realities existed simultaneously, and the show either didn't understand that complexity or chose to ignore it. History hasn't been kind to that choice. Number 3, the show's merchandise empire was absolutely insane. At its peak, the Dukes of Hazzard wasn't just a TV show. It was a merchandising juggernaut that rivaled Star Wars. There were General Lee lunchboxes, Daisy Duke action figures, Boss Hogg Halloween costumes, board games, comic books, bed sheets, toy cars, and even a Dukes of Hazzard cologne. Yes, cologne. You could smell like Hazzard County. Warner Bros. Was making more money from merchandise than from advertising revenue. The General Lee alone generated tens of millions of dollars in toy car sales. Every child in America seemed to own a miniature version of that orange Charger. The cast, remember, wasn't seeing any of this money initially. That's what led to the season 5 walkout. Tom Wopat and John Schneider were watching their likenesses generate massive profits while they made standard TV actor salaries. When they finally renegotiated, they secured a small percentage of merchandising, but Warner Bros. Had already made the bulk of the fortune. The bizarre part? Some of that merchandise is now worth serious money to collectors. Original 1980s General Lee die-cast cars in mint condition sell for hundreds of dollars. Certain action figures command 4-figure prices. The show created a secondary market that still exists decades later. The Dukes of Hazzard proved that a TV show could be more valuable as a brand than as a broadcast product. It was an early template for the franchise model that now dominates entertainment. Number 2, James Best, Sheriff Roscoe, directed multiple episodes while playing the buffoon. James Best was a legitimate talent stuck in a ridiculous role. Before the Dukes of Hazzard, Best had been a working actor for 3 decades, appearing in everything from westerns to war films. He'd worked with directors like Sam Peckinpah and had serious dramatic chops. Then he became Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane, the bumbling, dog-loving lawman who couldn't catch the Duke boys if they drove in reverse. But here's the twist. Best was also directing episodes. Starting in season 2, Best began stepping behind the camera, helming some of the show's most technically complicated episodes. He'd literally direct a car chase sequence in the morning, then put on his sheriff's uniform and film his own comedic scenes in the afternoon. The crew loved working with him because he understood both sides of production. He knew exactly what the camera needed and could communicate with stunt coordinators, actors, and cinematographers with equal fluency. Several cast members have said Best's episodes were among the smoothest productions, yet he never got full recognition for this dual role. The Television Academy didn't take the Dukes of Hazzard seriously enough to nominate him for directing. Critics ignored his work, and the public only knew him as the goofy sheriff with the dog named Flash. Best continued acting until his death in 2015 at age 88. Always gracious about his Duke's legacy, but clearly wistful about the dramatic roles he never got to play because Hollywood saw him as nothing more than comic relief. Talent often goes unrecognized when it's wrapped in a buffoon's costume. Number 1, the final episode, aired on a Friday night in February 1985, and nobody really noticed. After 7 seasons, 145 episodes, and countless jumps, the Dukes of Hazzard ended with a whimper. The final episode, Opening Night at the Boar's Nest, aired on February 8, 1985. There was no special 2-hour finale, no major guest stars, no dramatic conclusion to the Duke family saga. Just another episode where Boss Hogg tried a scheme, the Duke boys foiled it, and everyone laughed in the end. The ratings were decent, but not spectacular. The show had been declining for 2 years, worn down by the cast walkout, creative fatigue, and changing television tastes. By 1985, audiences were moving toward darker, more serialized storytelling. Miami Vice and Hill Street Blues represented television's new direction. The Dukes of Hazzard felt like a relic from another era. There was no farewell tour, no retrospective specials. The cast didn't even know the final episode would be the last one until after it aired. CBS simply declined to renew the show, and it disappeared from the primetime schedule like it had never existed. In the decades since, there have been reunion movies, failed reboots, and a terrible 2005 feature film that everyone involved with the original show disowned. But the show itself remains frozen in time, a perfect artifact of late 1970s, early 1980s American television, and maybe that's appropriate. The Dukes of Hazzard was never meant to be timeless art. It was pure, unfiltered entertainment designed to thrill for 60 minutes and then evaporate. It did its job perfectly. Okay, so the Dukes of Hazzard was never sophisticated. It was never trying to be. It was car jumps and cornpone humor, pretty faces and good old boys outrunning the law. It was comfort food television that asked nothing of its audience except to enjoy the ride. For 7 years, it delivered exactly what it promised: an escape into a world where the good guys always won, the car always landed, and justice always prevailed by the final commercial break. But beneath that orange paint and those Confederate flag decals, there was real craftsmanship. Stunt coordinators risking their lives, actors delivering perfect comedic timing, directors staging complex action sequences on television budgets, writers churning out 22 episodes a season and somehow keeping it fresh. The show's legacy is complicated. The Confederate imagery hasn't aged well. The gender politics are dated. The portrayal of rural Southern culture sometimes veered into caricature, but millions of people loved it anyway, and their nostalgia is genuine. The Dukes of Hazzard proved that sometimes television doesn't need to be important. Sometimes it just needs to be fun. And for a brief moment in television history, nothing was more fun than watching that orange Charger fly through the air, freeze-framed against a Georgia sky, while Waylon Jennings told us those boys were in a heap of trouble. They always got out of it. We always believed they would. So here's my question for you. What's your favorite Dukes of Hazzard moment? The jump that made you gasp? The episode you watched over and over? Drop it in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit that like button, subscribe for more weird facts about classic TV, and tell me what show you want me to cover next. Until then, keep those wheels turning and that rebel spirit alive. Just maybe leave the Confederate flag at home.